I've been watching pretty closely the last few days or last week or so with what's been going on um, with Trump, and I think if you have been watching closely, it's been pretty apparent that we're learning what the Trump doctrine of foreign policy actually is. Um, Start beginning with the Saudi Arabia speech, and then with these last two speeches with him and J.D. Vance both doing a speech at one of our history or storied military academies, Annapolis and West Point. You know, Vance, of course, because he's a Marine, was at Annapolis, and Trump did West Point, and both or all three speeches I felt pointed to one thing. We're going to start doing things differently, and here's how. And I think it's super refreshing to hear what to hear our leaders lay out their picture of the future. That's refreshing. I can't remember the last time I heard that. You know, they campaign typically, they run for office, they tell you a lot of stories. They get into office, and then it's like the only time you hear from them is when it's pure reaction. You just get reactions to events. You never get they haven't been proactive for a long time where they're like, this is the way we're going to do things. This is our idea. How do you guys feel about it? And I think the first 100 days it was such a kerfuffle with Liberation Day. It was they weren't talking about this. They were getting, they were whipping the government into line, replacing people, appointing people, and the dust has finally settled. Now that everything's cool, the market's back to where it was, and all of a sudden, they start laying the foreign policy on us, and you know they open up by talking about how in the recent past how it's been done, the nation builders, and that's a very pointed set of presidents and set of years of America nation building. That's George W. Bush, and after, and and it's also this is very the speeches and the choice of the speech or of the where they decided to give the speeches is symbolic. The Middle East, that's very symbolic. Um, anybody who's been alive in the 21st century understands why that's so symbolic, especially to repudiate um, nation building and war profiteering and stuff. Which that speech by Trump, it was lauded by. It was a bipartisan. It was lauded bipartisan. You know, both sides of the political landscape of America rejoiced and rejoiced. I mean, no one had anything bad to say that I mean, nothing, no real pointed barbs. Nobody said, damn you, how dare you say we're not going to pursue wars. It was nothing like that. Um, there was no strict partisan line stuff with this new Trump doctrine. And his approval rating's really high, and he comes out with this doctrine, and everyone rejoices. So I think that he may have been testing the water, dipping his toe in the water, see how things, how the world reacts, how the country reacts. Well, it turns out it was music to everyone's ears. That's absolutely what everyone wanted to hear. That we don't want any more wars. And I was worried that we were going to get sucked back into a war. It seems like every time that we're doing good or we're about to break out and have another boom period or another technological leap, boom, we get hit with 9/11 or some crap that drags us into the mire. And uh, and I thought that would happen this time, but from what Trump is saying, no, that's not happening. And I'm so relieved at that. And they chose the Middle East. Then Trump gives the speech, the commencement speech at West Point, the literal cradle of our military, of our army. And then J.D. Vance, same day I believe, gives a speech at Annapolis, the cradle of our Marine Corps, the cradle of our Navy. I mean, it's very symbolic, and I think it's very momentous. It wasn't lost on me. I think that if you are a millennial like me, I was born dead in the center of that generation, pretty much anyway. And to my mind, this is the foreign policy that I got the feeling that this was going to be the orientation of America in the world for the rest of my life. That's the feeling that I got. That, like, Reagan changed things for the rest of the boomers' lives. I mean, I do believe that this is the the millennial version of Reagan. And I'm totally here for it. It's fantastic news, and it's absolutely momentous stuff. And I can tell you this: millennials will look back on this and say that was an important time. That, like JFK, like Reagan, this will be thought of as a very important time. This will be a fulcrum point. This will be and it will be a focal point of history. Like Reagan was a focal point. Like Jack Kennedy was a focal point. And I think we were due. I think we were due. And thank goodness that it was a flag. It was a patriotic flag waving president that we got. It came due with the right president. I think we were in desperate need of a healthy dose of American excellence. There's nothing like some good old-fashioned American flag waving. For those of you that have seen Yankee Doodle Dandy with James Cagney, it's about George M. Cohan, who wrote over there, we won't come back till it's over there. I mean, but he wrote almost all of the great show tunes, especially the American marching music was written by George M. Cohan, which is, he was an Irishman. And, that's what this reminds me of. I don't think it's jingoistic at all. I think it's good old-fashioned flag waving. In the George M. Cohan, because like they say in Ireland, they pronounce it Cohan. The George M. Cohan flag waving is back, and we're getting a good dose of it with the 250th anniversary. We have the Olympics, the World Cup. I mean, it's hard not to feel patriotic, and it's hard not to feel optimistic. And I'm actually daring to feel optimistic over the long term. Not just for 4 years, but over the course of the rest of my life. Which, God willing, that'll be the case.